Hello, thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to show you how to use Doc Appender, Google Forms, and to assess student work and provide feedback. So the first thing you need to do is to create a new folder. So I'm already in my assessment folder. I'm going to create a new one titled Term 2 Assessment Reports. Click Create. And I can see it here. So I'm going to double click on it to go into it. And then I'm going to create a new document. I have one that I've previously made that I want to use. So I'm just going to, I'll open it up and show you what it looks like. Okay, so if I go into term 2, this is the template that I created. The first thing you want to make sure you do is change from portrait to landscape in settings. So to do that, if you're not familiar, you would go to File and you would scroll all the way down to Page Setup and select Landscape. So I've already done that here. And then I've just put in a title because I'll be sharing this with students and parents so they have access to my feedback and the marks that they've gotten on various assignments. I've also put in a statement that says this document is for descriptive feedback on assignments and tests and is an overall progress report in all subjects. You can make that whatever you like or not even put that statement in there at all, especially if you don't plan on sharing this with students or parents. You don't need that. I've left a space here so that I could insert the student's name, and there's my title, and I think I'm going to add on term 2. There, so it's clear. What I need to do now, so I have one document created in this folder. I need to create a document for each student. So to do that, all I do is I can do two-finger tap and say make a copy, and it will do that. My class, I have 20 students, so I'm going to have to create 20 of these documents. That can be a little bit time consuming, so if you hold down Control and click on 2 of them and right click and say make a copy, it will create 2 more. So I'm going to quicken up the process of copying 20 of them. So now I can create 4 instead. You get the idea. So once I have, I'm going to pretend right now that I have 20 copies made. I'm then going to rename them. So it's quite simple to rename them. Right click, rename, and I've numbered each of my students. So I'm just going to do this for now. 1. You may have noticed that if you just put in the number 1, it won't actually in numerical order. So numbers 1 to 9, you need to put a 0 in front of them so that they will be in order. So it'll take a little bit of time, a few minutes to do this. And then you're going to be creating a Google form. So once again, I'm going to pretend that these are all completed. And then I've already created one. You could develop one that's similar. There's lots of different ways you can do it, but in Google Forms, you're going to create a new one, title it Term 2 Student Assessment Reports in the year. And the first question you need to include is student name. And then you need to select check boxes. You could use multiple choice, but that would restrict you to only selecting one student at a time. And the same thing goes for the drop down. That would only allow you to select one student. In some cases, you may want to select multiple students. So check boxes are the best. And then you're going to leave these boxes blank because Doc Appender is going to be inserting the student names in there for you. Okay, so all you have to have is student name and check boxes, and then you can move to the next question, which is subjects. I have decided that I will use one form for all subjects, and all subjects will be put into one document per student. You may decide that you're going to have one per subject. But if you decide on subjects, once again, you're going to be selecting the check boxes, because there are many assignments that are cross-curricular. So you may have a language and a math assignment, and you may be wanting to click both of those. Okay, so you add in all of your subjects, and then you can go down to your next question, and I've decided to put in strand as my next question, because up here in subjects I just put math down and language down, but I'm obviously going to want to indicate which strand that was, if it was data management or oral language. So in this case though, you're going to be selecting short answer. You could have multiple choice or check boxes, but strand it's easy to do a short answer. The next one I've put in is the grade or benchmark. I'm intermediate, so I have put in percentages beside the level, since I use both. I use rubrics, and the report card for intermediate is done in percentages, so I've put them side by side, so it's a little bit easier for parents. And I've included this. I also want to include actually incomplete. So okay, and then I'll scroll down to the next question. And I have what you are doing well. So this is my descriptive feedback. So here's the strengths of the assignment. And I've put in a long answer text. You could do short answer, but you will want something that you can just type in. You won't be wanting to select any of the multiple choice boxes. Please select short answer or paragraph. And the same goes for what needs to improve and specific steps to improve. You could just consolidate these two into one. And then at the very end, I've put in evidence. This has been really handy when I'm marking, say, a Google Doc of a student, and I can copy the link and I can insert it here, and then it's very easy for me to click on that, or the parent or the child to click on that link, and then be directed immediately to that assessment. So that's the Google form. So once you're done your Google form, of course, with the new forms, you can select some neat backdrops and everything. They've finally added on add-ons. So if you click the add-ons puzzle piece, even if you haven't added Doc Appender, it will still show up here. So you'll be selecting Doc Appender. It will, if you've never used it before, it will prompt you if you wanted to add it, go through those steps, and then it's going to bring you back to the form like this. And you're going to have to again click on the puzzle piece add-ons and click on Doc Appender. You want to open the sidebar, and it'll show up right here, and it will load. So this is why it's really important that you've already completed the folder with docs in it assigned to each student. So we're going to pick a folder from our drive. It's going to bring me to all the selections I can go from, and I just have to find it. And it was recent, so it's nice it shows up right here, and I can select that folder. And you can see that it's shown up right here. Okay, and then I'm going to go to next and select a question. So what I want to have linked to those documents. So I click here and see how there was no options. So you have to refresh the list. And then hopefully it shows up. See, I have a few headings that it's pulled from the form that I just created. I want student names to be selected. And then I want to save and populate selected question. And you can see that here are the documents. You would have finished renaming them, so the student name may show up here. And here, obviously, I didn't finish renaming them. So they show up as you left them. for showing you this. I'm going to leave it as such and say I'm happy, so I'll go to next. It's now going to ask me which questions I would like to have recorded in those docs that I created for each student. So you may want to have a timestamp. This will tell you when you inserted that data. I'm not going to select that though. And I'm also not going to select student name because each student has their own doc, and therefore you know automatically who it is. So if you're going into Sarah's to look at her data, you don't need her name listed in the chart in that document because you know it's hers already. You do want subjects listed as well as strand, the grade they received, and the feedback so you and them can see that, as well as the evidence. Okay, so I have, these are all going to end up in a chart. So the important thing is right here that we changed this. Right now it's going to come up as a bulleted list, which will be very unorganized for the purposes of assessment. So we need to click on this, these selections. You could have bulleted list, separated vertical table, or rows and single horizontal table. I'm going to choose the single horizontal table and then say enable. Okay, so now it's all saved. You can X off of here. Now, it's always a good idea to test it out to make sure it worked. So you want to go to the eye, to the preview, and I highly recommend that you bookmark it onto your bookmarks bar. You can see that I've done that here. So all I have to do is click on this link and it takes me right to the form. So I'm going to pretend that I was just marking a math test, and it was student number 2's that I marked. So I'll click on student 2, and it was a math test, and it was a measurement strand. And I might even want to say the topic. So maybe it was cylinders. That'll make it really easy to know which it went with. This student got a 3+. And then I can put in some what you did really well. Calculations and following steps. Right, so this is just a test. And then evidence, I would be able to put in the link here to the test if it was an electronic version. Or you can also take a picture of student work, maybe with your cell phone, and then it goes into your drive, and you could copy that link of the picture into the evidence section. For me, I'm not using that right now, so I'm just going to hit submit. And it's going to save it. And the nice thing about this is I can now click on here, submit another response, and go on to the next student that I just marked. I'm going to go into my folder and check that this worked. So I just assessed student number 2. So I'll open the document and see that the data loaded in how I wanted it to. Because you can always go back to the form and change how it's set up. You could I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so here it went right in to the student's document, which is great. It creates this table. So next time I mark something for student number 2, it's going to create another horizontal row down here, and it'll be of a different test or assignment or just feedback, whatever I want it to be. Okay. You might want to be mindful that you write enough but not too much, just because these will end up as very large and long columns, but it is what you want it to be, right? You could go back into this document, you could add more, you could add a voice note. Let's say you weren't happy with how this showed up. Maybe you wanted the timestamp in here. So you can go back to your form and adjust it. Now, the only way that I've successfully found how to adjust it would be to X off of all of these. So take these attached, these Doc Appender documents out, and then go through the process of adding it in again, and then you can change those settings. So there may be a way to go back in and change. If I go onto add-ons and Doc Appender, you may have the ability to change them. I just haven't explored that far. Oh, see, so I'm getting an error. Oh, here. So I may be able to change some of these settings. Let me just check. It doesn't seem to like me doing it. Okay, so that is probably the easiest option, is to just X these documents out and reload them in with the new settings with timestamp or whatever you would like. Okay, if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. You can email me at katrina.gowett@wcdsb.ca.